Hello, hello, hello. I'm about to invite our friend Szara to join us. Give me a second. There we go. Just wait till you see where she is. Okay, so today is Friday. It is 10 to 10 Pacific Standard Time, and it's 10 to 6 Greenwich Mean Time. And here we go. Here's Szara. 1 second. We're going. She's good. There she is. Wow.
Hello. Here
Hi,
I
darling.
am. We get to be
On the Isle
together.
of Skye.
On the Isle of Skye. Look at grayness.
It's grayness.
Clouds are out there. Yes, we're in the
It is.
clouds. Beautiful.
Okay, friend. So what we took on last week was starting this conversation around listening.
Yes. And like it's so funny. You take it on and everything starts like you start seeing new things.
You do. And you start, well, I don't know about for you, but what's most commonly there is that when I start off something, when I think, oh, I'm going to do this thing, then everything that's not that starts to show up. I start to notice where I'm not actually listening.
Yeah. Yeah, like I noticed like with Reed actually in particular, it's like because we're traveling together with him. Oh, here he comes over. He might come into this video. You never know. Um, and we're driving and he has different things to say. And it's like I really think I'm hearing him. And this is great to get into this conversation today. Like I really think I'm listening to him and I hear what he has to say and I could probably repeat his words back to you. But then it's like again, it isn't at all what he's trying to ask for. Like he's just talking
Mm.
about like us coming to the town and what's in the town, and he's actually really curious about, the history of it. And I have it that like he's tired in the car and he can't wait to get out. But it's like, so I like hear
Mm.
his words one way and I start answering him and he's like, well, no, not because of any of that. Like I just want to know like
Wow.
how long and what happened here. And yeah, it's like, wow.
Wow.
It's like, wow, I didn't actually listen to you at all, did I? I did not hear your communication. I didn't get your communication, did I? I
But
thought I was
it's
good at listening.
but that's exactly it, right? But it's
Hmm.
actually really brilliant because you're actually segueing right into what we had created for today. Is it that there's a
Hmm.
difference right there between listening and hearing? And I went and I
Mm.
actually looked it up, just so you know.
Oh,
And
yay. Please tell me what you found.
well, the bits that really stuck out for me is that hearing is a passive thing that we do. We don't have to be engaged at
Yeah.
all to hear.
Well, hearing's almost the like actual physical, mechanical,
Exactly.
biological function of sound coming here into our ear
Into the little
and
space
passing
called.
off,
Mm-hmm.
and jumping off of our eardrum and getting processing information to our brain.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
really actually hearing.
yeah. And it doesn't
I can
require
hear you.
anything to, you don't have to do anything for that to happen.
Yeah.
And so then
And
yeah, well then what does it require if we're going to actually listening? Sorry, I just
mm,
got a message that popped in. When we're actually listening, actually inquire, it requires us to be paying attention, being
mm,
engaged, right? And right there in a conversation. And I think that's so cool. Like there's an action attached to it.
yeah. And it's interesting because I've been like really like curious of what like since we've said okay it's gonna be listening versus hearing is today's
Mm-hmm.
topic, and I've been like all day even as we've been going through like conversations and stuff I'm like, oh, what part of this am I hearing and what part am I listening,
Mm.
like just to even like
Yes.
be in an inquiry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And what does it take to listen, like just been like I've been asking myself that question,
Brilliant.
what does it actually take to listen? And it's interesting because like curiosity and interest is actually kind of what it needs to take, like to be curious of what is the communication that person is delivering. What is
Mm-hmm.
the like what is the message that person is trying to have land over with me? Like if I
Mm-hmm.
actually get interested in not just their words, but what their message is or what their communication is or what are they trying to say or what do they want me to know here? Like and I start like asking myself that question and then hear them through that, like, really listen, because then I'm like listening to so much more than just like their words, wah, wah, wah.
Exactly. You're not just
Like
listening to the
I actually,
sounds.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I find like it pulls forward when I'm standing and listening. Like I just notice if I say I'm listening, I'm just naturally, it's like I'm curious and I'm interested.
Yeah. And I hear pulling it to you. that you're actually
Yeah,
pulling that conversation to you.
yeah, like it's active and engaged. Yeah. And in with listening, like you may ask questions, right? Like you actually might, I notice myself if I'm actually like listening, like, and I have a commitment to like actually listen, I might actually like ask, oh, like, do you mean this? Or did I hit like, is that what you
Mm,
mean? Like, I just to
hmm.
check in. Like, I always like want to do check-in points, like to make sure I'm hearing what that intention is, or I'm hearing what that person's trying to communicate. Like, I
Yes.
find myself
Yeah.
actually asking a few things to check in instead of just assuming, which I
Brilliant.
like to do. I notice how much I'm assuming. Like instead of assuming what I heard is what they're saying.
Hmm. No, that's really brilliant because I think, oh, I'm just hearing the whole world of what you're creating there. It actually, the pulling forward and not, and checking in so that you're not making assumptions, because part of what listening requires is that idea of, sorry, I'm getting messages as we're speaking, so I got distracted for a second. I'm not listening.
You're
Ah,
a wanted person, needed and wanted. Look at you.
yeah. Now, if I, but isn't it curious, right? That like those are, that's exactly what interrupts us listening, or all those outside stimuli or inside
Yeah,
thoughts, right? That's
different
what I was really trying to get
distractions.
to, right?
Yeah.
And that's what was brilliant that that happened.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question too, because like I've been engaged in the question of like, what does it take to listen, or what what
Mm-hmm.
what needs to be there to listen, or what will pull forward a space of listening. And a great
Mm,
inquiry too is what gets in the way of listening.
yeah.
Like
And
what's in
you
the
know,
way of actually listening?
the minute you say that to me, my own perceptions are right there, right? That they get in the way
Mm.
of my listening, which is what actually you were talking about earlier. My own
Yeah,
perceptions
say
of what's
more.
needed and wanted.
So say more about that, your own perceptions.
Well, so if I, it's what you were saying a little bit about read, right? If you're listening, thinking that
Mhm.
you know, like what is needed and wanted
Mm.
here, you're not actually listening. You're
Yeah.
actually just having the information come to you.
Yeah. But it's the assumptions. Yeah.
Hmm.
it's like I make an assumption that I've heard you, first of all. Yeah, I heard the information. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm making an assumption that I know.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
there's like, yeah, this baseline, like, yeah, I know what you're saying, or I know what you want, or I know you. And we do this with our kids, actually. I'm even
Oh,
just saying that. I'm so present to how often I have my kids packaged in a box. Like we do know them really well. Like as a parent, most parents are caregivers and providers. We know our kids so
hands down.
well. We've been with them. So it's so quick. Like it happens so fast that we lump it into like, I know what they're going to say. I know what they want. I know what they're trying to communicate. I know their nuances.
Exactly.
And like, whoa, knowingness so gets in the way of listening, doesn't it?
It
Oh,
really does. It really, really does. I was driving with Dan today, and it was really fun because he had a lot going on in his head and he hadn't slept well and he was concerned. And we kept going off on tangents, right? And I was like so conscious of like, but I had a commitment here to actually listen to what was there for him. And so I kept saying to him, hey, Dan,
mm,
we've gone all over the place. Let's come back to what you were saying. And it was beautiful because in that moment, my commitment was actually where he was, to be heard,
mm,
to have everything that he needed said delivered. And if I actually, in one way, didn't need to say anything because when I listened to him, I could hear the space where he was,
mm.
that it was actually out of his way. But I kept doing the verbal, like, but we said we needed to do this, so let's just check out. It was really interesting, that like dance between checking in and actually hearing what he was saying and actually taking it in
Yeah,
and like making sense of it. Like, is that enough or not? Yeah, like that. Anyway, dance. We're
yeah.
back to
So
dancing.
yeah, there we go. So hearing versus listening. So like hearing technically is the technicality of it, it's the mechanics of
Yes,
it.
it
And
is.
then the listening is like really like how like are you actually engaged with that other human across from you, hearing
Yes.
what, listening what their communication actually is, not from knowing, like, and what I hear in this conversation is that the knowing can so get in the way.
Yes. And then the
Yeah, and the
other thing that,
curiosity can pull
yes.
forward.
And then what you also brought is what gets in the way of our listening,
Hmm.
right? Like that we actually can be responsible for that.
Yeah. Yeah, because if I'm in a moment of like with one of my kids, or my husband's another good person that I should probably lump him in a box pretty fast,
Mm-hmm.
is like, wow, what if like I just come from like I actually don't know his communication. Like what if I just create for myself. Like, I don't know what this person is about to say. I don't know this person. What an
Yes.
opportunity to discover them newly, hear them newly, and actually
Yes.
listen like I've never listened before. Like, what would I actually hear? That would be kind
It,
of neat, actually, to spend this week
wouldn't
doing.
it? Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let's pretend like, we have like a blank slate, like we wipe our brains and our memory. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know. And I
Okay.
don't have to assume. And I can get
Yes.
curious.
And and I'm like, I already have an idea about what's gonna like show up out of that, but let's take that on. Right? New
Yeah.
listening. Listening newly.
Yeah. Let's
Brilliant.
go listen. Let's go out there. Ooh. And listen.
Yeah.
Love it. Love
Okay,
it.
sweet
All
pea.
right. And you out there, let's take this on. We'd love to hear from you of what you are getting out of this conversation, where you notice you're hearing, what gets in the way of you listening, what brings you access to that listening, and what are you discovering newly in your children, in your family, in your partnerships, and the people around you when you're like listening, really
Mm-hmm.
listening like you don't know them and listening totally newly. Who are they and what are they saying and what are they trying to communicate with you? What do they want you to know? And you know what? I just even heard you can even ask.
I know, wouldn't that be brilliant? Awesome.
That's kind of cool. Okay, I like this.
Me too. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okie dokie. Okay,
Look
I'm going
forward
to
to
send
listening.
lots of love to everybody and to you on the Isle of Skye. Fare thee
Bye.
well. Bye.
Love you.